Hey, welcome everyone to this edition of Chops on Top. Got a great episode for you today. I'm so excited to present brother Brent Walker, Phi-Rho number two. Welcome, Brent.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me, Brother Waller. It's great to be here, and it's great to think back to all of the long history that we have with Lambda Chi Alpha at TSU.
Yeah, I've been thinking about our time together on this episode, and so many things came to my mind. And then you shared that picture with me and Daryl a while ago, and that was great. I think about running around with you in that red Forerunner. I mean, it was. Hey, so some
Yeah,
of the folks may not know you as well. Some may not just know the legacy. So I know you grew up in Freer. Your dad was a calf roper. I mean, tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
yeah, sure. So yeah, I grew up in Freer, Texas, which is back then was a oil and gas and ranching, hunting type of area of the country. And my family, my dad's side of the family, were all ranchers, and as you mentioned, was also a professional rodeoer in his younger days. And then my mom's side of the family were more in the roughnecking oil business, and unfortunately not on the producing oil and gas side of the business, but the working the wells side of the business. So yeah, very much grew up in Freer, grew up on a ranch, enjoyed my time there. It's a really small school, and spent a lot of time working on the ranch, which made me realize that I needed to get out of Freer so I wouldn't be on the ranch the rest of my life. And that's what kind of led me to know I wanted to go to college, and just figured out where I wanted to land.
So what made you pick Tarleton?
One of my a coach and a teacher, which were a married couple at the time there in Freer, Texas, had both gone to Tarleton, and then my track coach also had gone to Tarleton. And at the time, I was coming from a tiny town in South Texas. I wanted to go to a smaller school because I just wanted to make sure I could adjust to that. Making that next step in education, if you will. And so they suggested Tarleton, and I thought, well, Tarleton may be a good spot to land. And if I would go there, I was thinking about pre-med at the time or pre-law. And so I was thinking I could go there for a year, see how I would adjust, and then I could always transfer to Texas A&M my second year if I wanted to go to a larger school. And that was really my intent. And I got to Tarleton, and it just was a liberal arts major my first year because again I wanted to see how I could do and how I would adjust to being at college. And during that year, I decided I wanted to do pre med, and I was still considering transferring to Texas A&M. And then at the end of the first semester there, so the fall of 1983, there was a group starting to talk about fraternities and putting something together. And and by the spring of 84, that had kind of really congealed and started having some good thinking about that. And there was a group that was sort of led by a guy, Ruben Yvonne, who was a leader on campus at the time, and he's put a group together, and I happened to be a part of that along with about 10 or 12 other people, and and started what was known as a Lambda Chi Alpha colony. It was is more of a social group at that time because you kind of have to start something. There was no Greek system on Tarleton's campus at the time, so this was the introduction of the Greek system for Tarleton. And so Lambda Chi Alpha was the first one, and that was chosen specifically because we wanted to not be associated with pledging. We liked the aspect of associates of Lambda Chi Alpha, and 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 then along with us developing, then the Kappa Alphas, of course, started, and then Delta Chi soon thereafter, and then from the women's side, then Delta Zetas and Alpha Gamma Deltas started, and so there were four. Then the Delta Chi's came on soon thereafter. So quickly five in that Greek system. that developed over the next couple of years. They weren't all in that spring of '84, but that's sort of how it started. So, needless to say, I really loved Tarleton. I fell in love with Stephenville. I developed some amazing friends, and with the fraternity and getting so involved in the fraternity, there was just no way I could leave. So, and then really, Tarleton was an excellent place from a pre-med standpoint. So, academic wise, it was good for me to stay there. So, long story, that's sort of what made me decide to go to Tarleton, and what really kept me at Tarleton was the pre-med program and the fact that. To be part of the development of the Greek system, which was, you can't go to many places where you're the beginning of a Greek system at a university like Tarleton.
If I remember right, didn't you go to the North Texas Health Science in Fort Worth after?
I did.
Yeah,
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 after I graduated in '87, yeah, 1987, then I went to University of North Texas Health Science Center in Fort Worth. At that time, it was called Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine, and uh, got my medical degree there. And at that time, it was nice because it was close to Stephenville. So I tried to get back to participate in activities and be involved. And you were still at Tarleton at the time when I was already graduated. So it was great to come back and visit with brothers and friends, and keep acquaintances there. And then after I finished up with medical school in Fort Worth, I wanted to do primary care, so I went into family medicine, and I was able to get into a program at UT Southwestern to do family medicine. And at that time, it was at St. Paul Medical Center in Dallas, which is no longer there. And now the program's all rolled up into UT Southwestern. And then after 4 years of there, I finished up with my residency, and I was recruited by Baylor, Legacy Baylor Healthcare System at the time, out of Dallas, to join a small practice in Southlake, Texas, with a hospital being in Grapevine. And so in 1994, the fall of 1994, I started my practice in Southlake. It was great, enjoyed my time there, practiced there for about 14, 15 years, and began to do more and more leadership opportunities inside the medical group, and transitioned to a practice, one of our partner practices in Dallas, and practiced there for another 8 to 10 years while I was doing, again, more administrative work.
right.
And then I became chief medical officer of the North Texas group of employed physicians. And that just took too much of my time, and I slowly went out of actual practice, taking care of patients directly, but doing more administrative work, leading physicians and healthcare providers throughout the Baylor healthcare system, now Baylor Scott and White healthcare system.
But I do got to brag on you a little bit. You invite people to the table, and you always need a bigger table. And I was one of those that you invited to the table. And your table keeps growing. And you look at the work that you do for cancer patients in New Mexico, and other cancer treatments that you give back to. I just want to applaud you publicly and appreciate you for, years ago, bringing me to the table. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have Phi-Rho 76, my little brother, Scott Haynes, also from Freer, your mom's nephew. So, you really have that sense. So keep that going.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's, I think that's what was the success of all of us at the time when we were developing Lambda Chi, is we all had the same drive to develop something and to make something that would be memorable. And it's great to look back now. What is it, 40 years? Makes me have to question that a little bit. But 40 years ago, developing something like this, and it's still going as strong, and hopefully will continue to go as strong. We had the opportunity. Well, I can tell you, as much as I just went through what I've done over the last, since I got out of college, and fortunately, I've not been as involved with so many of our brothers from Phi-Rho Zeta. Um, but it's like family. you can go years without seeing somebody or talking to somebody, and you can pick up the pieces right away and feel that you can pick up where you left off. And we had that experience recently with getting together for Brother Daryl Brown's funeral, having so many people there, and just develop picking right back up where we left off, enjoying conversations and hearing about everybody's family. I mean, you're one of the few I've been able to keep much more in touch with than others over the years. But I hope that I hope other generations that have come after us have been able to develop the same type of friendships that we've had when we started Lambda Chi Alpha Phi-Rho Zeta. The fraternity was such a learning experience for us. I mean, we all left home and went to college, and you're in a stew pot and you're mixed together. And I think that's what gave so many of us the skill sets we have to be able to have conversations with folks, be able to have disagreements today and be still best friends tomorrow.
Right.
We had many of those types of arguments in our meetings, right? When we would have our regular Lambda Chi Alpha meetings or our committee meetings, and we all joke how we all had to get onto each other, but yet we were still friends at the end of the day, and brothers at the end of the day. And that's stuff that you carry on through with you, and I think is very much a part of what has allow so many people to be successful in businesses, hopefully in their marriages or their friendships with others. I think that's one of the best parts that never quits giving, from the experience you have of being part of an organization like Lambda Chi and a chapter like we had at Phi-Rho Zeta. I think that there was also the challenges, though, too. Those are some of the biggest challenges of figuring out how to deal with those different personalities. I think the best times are just, in preparation for our meeting today, I went and pulled out my photos and memorabilia from, 40 years ago, and looking back at pictures from the original colony men's group that we put together to the association ceremony when TCU came up to Tarleton to uh, you know officially make us part of Lambda Chi Alpha, to our chartering ceremony in April of 1986. And all of those are great memories. And looking back at the pictures and the friendships, and seeing people who are still with us today, and the few that have passed, and just remembering the good times and the friendships that we had.
Well, I can say that nobody can enunciate the Greek mottos on our coat of arms better than you. And I remember that at my association ceremony, and my parents were there, and Leslie was my fiance at the time. And I mean, the work that you put into it, and the others, it's just, yeah, very made it very memorable. And I think over the time, some generations of our members have been more formal, and some have been a little more slack. But today we got a good group that I think really try to practice, the memorization, because you don't realize how much it makes a difference. Any favorite memories or challenges or inner brotherhood spats back in the day as you were forming that you want to can talk about or
You can
can
edit
talk
this
about?
out if you want, but I think that it's always funny how a Walker with a W got to be Phi-Rho Zeta number two. And yeah, 'cause I should have been at the end of the list of the first group that was initiated. But the group at the time, Darren Albus was part of the group of the first ones that were initiated, and all of us were. I'll be damned if we're going to let Darren Albus be Phi-Rho Zeta number one. Somehow we decided we were going to all draw numbers out of a hat, decide who was going to be and how we were going to be listed. We still, to this day, I think, accuse Darren of figuring out a way of drawing number one, so he would always stay number one. But I'm glad I would happen to draw number two through all of that. So anyway, it's just a fun story about how, again, you learn to get along and you figure out how to manage through life.
So if you had some words to share with the chapter, and by the way, we're going to reach 825 with
Uh,
this next initiation class. Um, Anything you'd like to challenge them with, or things for the undergraduates that recently graduated to think about?
I think one of the most important things to do is you're going through college and you're approaching graduation and you're getting ready to kind of move on to that next phase of life of being kind of, if you will, a grown up, I guess, and really taking on all of life's responsibilities is don't be afraid of any challenge, and go um, have confidence in yourself, have confidence in your ability to do something, but also have the insight to know when you don't know how to manage something, to ask for help and reach out to your friends, your family, your brothers, and ask for help when you need help. I think that people get themselves into. I talk about this all the time in the medical world. You know, physicians are supposed to know everything, but they don't know everything. And the ones who get themselves in trouble are the ones who think they do, and the ones that ask for help are always the most successful. So I think that's just something to take with you as you go on, you advance. Is just never be afraid to reach out and ask for help from your fellow friends, your fellow brothers, your
Good
family.
folks. Hey, thanks for joining this episode of Chops on Top. Uh, Been glad to have Brent Wayne Walker, Phi-Rho number 2, with us today. I'm your host, Will Waller, Phi-Rho 58, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Honoring our past and building our future.